I am 16 hours into Gundam Breaker 4, and I am loving it. Gundam Breaker 4 is such a huge step up from New Gundam Breaker, and though it is a couple steps back in some regards from Gundam Breaker 3, for the most part, it is a sensational sequel. It is a game that I could absolutely see myself pouring hundreds of hours into, with incredible customization and some really, really fun gameplay. So, let's get into my thoughts. 16 hours in, do I think Gundam Breaker 4 is worth buying? Yeah, absolutely, especially if you're a Gundam fan, but even if you're not, I think it allows you to make some really cool, fun stuff, and also some really cursed things. If you're new to the Breaker series, Gundam Breaker 4 is a phenomenal place to start. It has a huge list of mobile suits, and in this game, you have the ability to select 2 different arms, 2 different melee weapons, or a paired joined melee weapon, and 2 different ranged weapons. And this customization is really where the game shines. Some parts have option part abilities or EX move abilities, and each of those gives you different benefits, and once mastered, you can use the EX moves even if you don't have that part equipped. So you really can make your own perfect mobile suit and kit it out basically however you wish. There are some downsides from this, the biggest one being that in this game, unlike in 3, they chose to make it where if you use a EX move that is tied to a part that you don't currently have on your Gunpla, it becomes a wireframe version of that piece, and you cannot use the regular piece. For instance, let's say you had the Shining Gundam arm and you wanted to use Shining Finger. Were you to try and do that, it would then remove your arm and put a wireframe version of the Shining Gundam's arm on there, which is all well and fine. I would prefer if you didn't have to do that, if you could just still have your arm the way that they did in 3, but it's not that big of a deal because you use the Shining Finger and you're done, right? But if you use a transformation ability like, say, Hyper Mode on the Master Gundam or Burning Gundam's bodies, for the entirety of that effect, you will have the wireframe version on your mobile suit, and that's just not as much fun as being able to do those moves with your regular mobile suit. It might seem like a small complaint, but it was already done right in 3, so I don't really understand why they made this choice here. That nitpick aside, though, being able to put any EX move on is wonderful. I wish we had the same ability with the OP skills, and you do have builder parts that allow you to put on extra OP skills, which are really nice, and some of them are just cosmetic, and those are fun as well. Though in this game, they're a lot weaker than they were in the previous games, because in the previous games, you had a skill that allowed you to buff them, and in this game, that doesn't really exist. So while they're great to be able to combo, it is unfortunately not a main source of damage in a build like you could do in the previous games. But let's talk about comboing for a little bit, because that is one of the big gameplay changes that's been done in this game. In this game, you have 2 meters. First, you have the hit meter, which increases with combo count. It's very easy to game this, and it's even easier when you use the OP skills, especially if you have like a Gatling on there, or if you're running a Beam Saber as your main weapon, or a Whip as your main weapon. The hit meter is going to fill very, very quickly. The second meter is the break meter, and this goes up as you kill enemies in quick succession. These meters do unfortunately have more of an impact on gameplay than I would like, in that you get buffs for the break meter and the hit meter, and those buffs are very, very nice. They make you quite a bit stronger, and so you do really want to build around them. You don't have to. I've absolutely played around with some builds that kind of just ignore that, but it definitely is faster if you do take them into account. There are ways to game them, like I said, especially the hit meter, but with the break meter, you're going to want to kill some of the weaker enemies to build up your break meter before you start focusing on the tankier enemies. For me personally, this is not a huge thing because, as I said, I can ignore it, but I know other people will not be able to do that. There's already been people in the comment sections of the network tests and of a couple of the other videos that I've made on it that hate this system. And so ultimately, again, while I think that Gundam Breaker 4 is an incredible game, I don't know that it quite lives up gameplay-wise to 3, even though I think customization-wise, it's way better. A change for the combat that I really love, though, are the way that the various different weapon types work now. Because you can have 2 different weapons in each hand, you can have a saber and an axe, or a saber and a katana, or a katana and a whip. And each of those will work differently from the way that they did before. Before, in Gundam Breaker 3, your sabers had their attack strains, your axes had their attack strains, the hammers had their attack strains, and that was cool. They were fun, but here each weapon has its own attack string that can complement each other, and there are multiple weapon types inside the weapon type. For instance, you have the saber weapon type, but your Lacerta saber is going to work differently from a standard GM beam saber, right? The Lacerta gives you the twin blade moveset when you hold the button, whereas the other one, the GM saber, is just the basic pop-up. When you account for all these little variations and these little changes, it actually comes out to be a fairly deep combat system. And that's not even counting the way that melee works, with it being two-handed, and you have 3 different types of melee, claw, martial arts, the way that great swords work, and other weapons like that. There are so many different ways to combine the different weapon types that it's really hard to say that I've seen all the moves and all the variations. Even though I've played around with all of them, I think, I still feel like there's going to be some that I find, some new version of a weapon that I didn't expect before. The goof saber that is actually a katana that has a different moveset to the Gerbera straight, for instance. There's so much depth in that. And then you add in the ranged weapons, and since you can have 2, you could take a Gatling and a beam rifle, or you could take twin beam bazookas, or you could take twin Dober guns, and you could stagger your enemies with those, or pelt away at them with range, and then go in for the melee. Just continually building up that combo meter as you hit them with your ranged, hit them with your melee, hit them with your OP parts. It is so much fun playing this game. And as much as I think Gundam Breaker 3 outpaces Gundam Breaker 4 in some ways in combat, I have to say I still love playing this game. And it is so much better than I thought the combat would be, even coming off the network test. There are a couple other small changes I wanted to mention from the previous games. If you have played those before, you might be surprised to find that funnels have been powered down in this game. They are definitely not as strong as they were in the previous games, and I understand why. Funnels in Gundam Breaker 3 were broken. Funnels in Gundam Breaker 3 were incredible, and it was so much fun to use them. Here, they're a little bit less strong. And when I say a little bit less strong, I mean going out of the gate, they're quite a bit less strong. But as you get further in, there are ways to buff them. I still think they're a little weak, even at that point, but I do still find them really fun to use. Another change that I want to throw in here that I find really interesting is that you get skills really early in this game that are really good. Within just a few story missions, I was able to make a suit that healed continuously really quickly. And also, because very shortly into the game, within the first couple chapters, you unlock the ability to level up your parts, you're able to get a pretty good build going out the gate. Not only that, but you're able to synthesize skills onto other parts as soon as you unlock leveling up parts, which means you can build just about whatever you want right away. And that is a wonderful thing. I purchased the game a second time on Steam. I want to see how it plays on a Steam Deck, and I want to have some other options to be able to play around with it, have another full bank of blueprints, right? And I don't feel worried about having to start over and try to build up to the good stuff, because I know it's only a couple chapters until I get to synthesize everything, and I can make basically whatever I want. And I think that's a really fun thing to do here. I know that in previous games, sometimes you had to wait a little while. Sometimes you didn't have to wait, but you got limited synthesis. You get most of it unlocked right away here in a way that I find is really cool. There are some things that come later, of course, but it doesn't take long at all. Speaking of chapters, though, let's talk about the story. I do think the story will be a sticking point for some players. The story so far has been really fun. I like the characters. However, some of the cutscenes get a little long. They're giving you time to set up these characters and help them grow. And like I said, I'm only 16 hours in. I don't know how they're going to continue to grow. I'm excited to see. But some of the cutscenes, especially the ones that pop up mid-mission, though they are very cool, are kind of jarring in how quick they happen. You can be mid-combo and a cutscene starts, and it drops you right back out on the other end of that combo. Another small problem that comes up in the story is that there are glitches that happen, and that's as much as I'll say about what is happening there for the sake of not spoiling anything. But those glitches are flashing lights that come at you real quick, And I'm not somebody that has a lot of problem with it, but it made me a little queasy. And I just wanted to throw that warning out there for those that are considering picking up this game. Story-wise, I think the characters are great. Like I said, I really enjoy them, and I think the story is worth seeing. But if you're somebody that played 3 and played 4, I'd say 4, New Gundam Breaker, that's been 4 in my mind for so long, got to break that habit, and you didn't enjoy the story, I'm not going to say this one is better than them, right? I think 3's story was maybe more fun for me personally, but I do really like these characters, and I'm enjoying seeing where they're going. And if you don't like it, the skip button's right there. The English voice acting is pretty solid. I did switch over and try between both, and I think I prefer the Japanese voice acting a little bit, but I'm kind of going back and forth on it. I like the English voice acting as well. I don't think it's bad. I prefer, especially once I found out that Koyasu was voicing a character, I really wanted to hear him then. A couple last things I want to mention here. The painting system is better than it's ever been. Being able to just paint individual parts is amazing. It still has some of them connected to others, but it gives you way more options than it had before. And even though I loved the way that GB3's painting worked, I think this painting system is superior. I just wanted to mention a couple small translation issues that are really weird. The biggest one to me is the Gen from Gundam Seed is for some reason called the Jin with a J, even though you can see the box that says that it's supposed to be pronounced Gen and that it's supposed to be spelled Gen. And then the Moonlight Butterfly from Turn A is called the Moonbeam Butterfly for some reason. I don't understand how those slip through, but they're minor things in the grand scheme of things. They just definitely stood out to me. I really like the way the shop works here. I have so much GP due to a special enemy type that will spawn in some missions that you can kill and get a ton of GP that I can basically buy whatever suits I want, which again just opens up to even more customization whenever I want it. I know I keep saying it over and over, but in GB4, customization is king. And if that's what you're looking for in a game, you're gonna like this one. I'm still not done with the game yet. I've got a lot more to do, a lot more to see, and a lot more to make. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. But so far, I'm loving it. And this is my game of the year so far. Gundam Breaker 3 is in my top 5 games of all time. And if by the end of this, it's able to unseat Gundam Breaker 3, that'd be amazing. I don't know that it will, and right now it hasn't. But I'm curious to see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Gundam Breaker 4. It's so good to be able to say that. As to often.